There are actors whose faces we have seen hundreds of times in movies, shows, commercials, on red carpets. And then there are others, the ones we remember for just one role, one film, one moment that stuck, hit deep, and never really left. We might not recall their names, but show us a scene. Snap, we know them instantly.
You gotta listen to the way people talk.
They became a symbol of something. A first crush, an old VHS tape worn out from too many rewatches, or just a time when life felt simpler. Sometimes it was luck. Sometimes it was tragedy. Maybe the actor couldn't outrun that shadow, or maybe they never tried. Because sometimes one role is enough. It says everything. This isn't a story about failure or bad choices. It's about how one perfect shot can be both a gift and a curse. And no, you won't find James Bond here. We're talking about the people who became part of our memory, even if they've long left the spotlight. Let's begin. Before there was Harry Potter or Katniss Everdeen, there was Kevin McAllister, a pint-sized sociopath with a thirst for cartoon violence and a wallet full of booby traps. And the boy behind that chaos? Macaulay Culkin. Yes, we're kicking this series off with the cherubic face that once ruled every living room between 1990 and 1993. Born in 1980 in New York City, Macaulay Carson Culkin was the third of 7 children, which already sounds like a sitcom setup. His father, Kit Culkin, was a former actor with Broadway credentials and a chip on his shoulder the size of Manhattan. His mother, Patricia Brentrup, kept things together while Kit attempted to live out his own failed dreams through his son. So yes, we're dealing with the classic stage parent cocktail, equal parts ambition, delusion, and zero chill. Culkin's career took off before he had even lost all his baby teeth. A few small roles led to his big break in Uncle Buck, 1989, where he stole scenes from John Candy without even trying. But then came Home Alone, a movie that turned a mildly mischievous child into an international icon. Directed by Chris Columbus and written by John Hughes, Home Alone was lightning in a bottle. It was also the kind of film where a kid slamming an iron into a burglar's face somehow translated into family fun. It grossed nearly $500 million worldwide, and overnight, Culkin became the child star. Here's the thing about being the child star. It ages like milk. Culkin reprised his role in Home Alone 2: Lost in New York, which was basically the same movie, but with more pigeons and a Donald Trump cameo. He tried to diversify, My Girl, The Good Son, Richie Rich. But the audience didn't want range. They wanted more paint cans to the face. By the time puberty hit, so did the backlash. Studios cooled off, the scripts dried up, and behind the scenes things got darker. His father, who managed his career, was notoriously controlling and reportedly abusive, both emotionally and financially. Legal battles between his parents over Culkin's earnings turned into a public circus. By the mid-90s, Culkin basically noped out of Hollywood altogether. At 14, he said, "Thanks, but no thanks," and vanished into the kind of obscurity only child stars and one-hit wonder bands truly understand. But Hollywood never forgets. Neither do tabloids. Throughout the 2000s, Culkin became a magnet for all the wrong kinds of attention. Paparazzi photos showed a pale, gaunt version of the kid everyone remembered. There were rumors of drug use, strange behavior, and that lingering friendship with Michael Jackson, which, regardless of actual facts, fueled 1,000 think pieces and conspiracy threads. He was arrested in 2004 for possession of marijuana and controlled substances, which did little to silence the speculation. But here's where it gets interesting. Unlike many who flame out, Culkin didn't crash into a fiery tabloid explosion. He kind of leveled out, got weird, sure, but in a self-aware, almost endearing way. He started a comedy rock band called the Pizza Underground, which turned Velvet Underground songs into odes to pizza. It was dumb. He knew it was dumb. That was the point. More importantly, he took back control of his narrative. He did occasional acting gigs, small roles, indie projects, voice work.
But I just can't go on that European tour.
He launched a satirical lifestyle brand called Bunny Ears, essentially trolling the entire Goop generation. He kept his distance from Hollywood without fully ghosting it. And in his personal life, things got strangely wholesome. He settled down with actress Brenda Song, and in 2021 they had a son together, Dakota, named after Culkin's late sister. You didn't expect that twist, did you? By the late 2000s and 10s, something weird happened. People started liking Macaulay Culkin again. Not just liking, rooting for him. Maybe it was nostalgia. Maybe it was the fact that he didn't die in a hotel room at 27. Or maybe it was because he never pretended to be anything other than a former child actor trying to figure his shit out. In 2021, he appeared in American Horror Story, reminding everyone that, oh yeah, the kid can still act. In 2023, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, not because he conquered Hollywood, but because he survived it. And sometimes, that's the bigger win. So, yeah, Macaulay Culkin, the kid who once screamed his way into movie history, then quietly burned out, flamed up, and somehow landed on his feet. Not exactly a fairy tale, not quite a tragedy, more like a really weird coming-of-age story with a happy-ish ending. And that's one hell of a way to start the list. Before he was running from a liquid metal death machine on a stolen dirt bike, Edward Furlong was just a regular 13-year-old kid with zero acting experience and a haircut you could only get in 1991. And yet, by some unholy combination of fate, James Cameron's instinct, and the casting gods being in a good mood that day, Furlong became John Connor, the boy who would save the world. No pressure, right? Discovered at a Pasadena Boys and Girls Club by a casting director who was probably just there to dodge traffic, Furlong was launched straight into the Hollywood meat grinder. Terminator 2 wasn't just a sequel, it was a cinematic sledgehammer. Schwarzenegger came back, Linda Hamilton went feral, and in the middle of it all was this scrawny teenager with a voice cracking every other line and a weirdly magnetic screen presence. He was raw, awkward, and somehow perfect. The movie crushed the box office and redefined the blockbuster, and Furlong was suddenly famous. Really famous. And like many overnight stars, he had no idea what the hell to do next. To be fair, the early 90s gave him a decent run. He starred in American Heart alongside Jeff Bridges, held his own in A Home of Our Own with Kathy Bates, and played a Nazi in training in American History X, which remains arguably his strongest performance. There were flashes of something real, something serious. But the more you watched, the more it felt like Hollywood wasn't quite sure what to do with him, or that he wasn't sure what to do with himself. Then came the spiral. It always comes, doesn't it? Furlong fell into the usual black hole reserved for too much too soon actors. Drugs, booze, rehab repeat. By the early 2000s, his name started popping up in police reports more than casting sheets. Domestic violence charges, heroin addiction, restraining orders. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck where the brakes had failed and the conductor was already asleep. He was even replaced in Terminator 3, a move that hurt not just his ego, but also the fans, who had grown attached to his scrappy, sarcastic version of John Connor. And yet, the dude kept working. Sort of. His post-T2 filmography is a mix of straight-to-DVD horror flicks, low-budget crime dramas, and things you'd only watch on a dare. Some of them had promise, most didn't. But through it all, Furlong kept showing up, sometimes bloated, sometimes sober, sometimes not. But he showed up. And in a town that eats its young and spits them out for sport, there's something to be said for just staying in the ring. What's wild is that Furlong never seemed interested in pretending. No PR rehab tour, no fake clean-cut comeback. When he talked about his addiction, he talked like someone who'd lived it, not someone trying to sell a redemption arc. He called his past a car crash you can't look away from. Fair enough. In recent years, there's been a flicker of, not quite a comeback, but a recalibration. In 2019, he was announced to return, digitally, sort of, in Terminator Dark Fate, though it ended up being more of a morbid CGI cameo than a real performance. Still, it was a nod. A signal that maybe Hollywood hadn't fully erased him. Off-screen, things have quieted down. He's reportedly been sober, working through his mess, and, get this, actually looking healthy. There's talk of new roles, small ones, nothing headline-grabbing, but for a guy who's been through the ringer and lived to talk about it, that's already a win. Edward Furlong didn't become a megastar, he didn't lead franchises or win Oscars, but he gave us that performance in T2, the kind that latches onto a generation and refuses to let go. He burned fast, crashed hard, and somehow is still standing. Not bad for a kid who got discovered by accident. Before there was Rick Sanchez screaming about Morty, there was Dr. Emmett Brown yelling 1.21 gigawatts at a teenager with a skateboard. And standing behind that lightning-struck hair and manic energy, Christopher Lloyd, the weird uncle of American pop culture, the man who never quite fit in and never really tried to. Born in 1938 in Stamford, Connecticut, Lloyd didn't exactly come out of the womb shouting, "Great Scott!" He was the youngest of 7 kids, painfully shy, and reportedly spoke so little that his parents wondered if something was wrong with him. Turns out there was. He wanted to be an actor. In the 1950s, in New England, you can imagine the family dinners. After training at the neighborhood playhouse in New York, alongside future legends and future Uber drivers, Lloyd cut his teeth in theater. Like real theater. Shakespeare, Chekhov, and more off-Broadway productions than a struggling poet's diary. He didn't care about fame. He just wanted to work, and sweat, and maybe yell in a Russian accent. Then came the screen. His film debut, a mental patient in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which felt less like acting and more like foreshadowing. His offbeat intensity made him stand out instantly, even in a cast that included Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito. Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with him, but the audience got the message. This guy's weird, in the best way. Then came Taxi, the late 70s sitcom that gave Lloyd a regular paycheck and audiences the neurotic, twitchy burnout of Jim Ignatowski. If LSD could be distilled into a sitcom character, that was him. He won 2 Emmys and spent most of the show looking like he'd just woken up in a dumpster behind a philosophy lecture. But let's talk Back to the Future. That was the lightning bolt. Doc Brown became iconic, a character so burned into the cultural brain that even people who haven't seen the movie can do the voice. Lloyd's performance walked a tightrope between mad scientist and over-caffeinated prophet, and somehow it worked. He wasn't acting like a man from the future. He was the future, by way of your uncle who thinks aliens talk to him through toaster ovens. The trilogy ran its course by 1990, and while Michael J. Fox went on to sitcom success and Parkinson's advocacy, Lloyd remained Lloyd. He didn't chase stardom. He just kept working. Sometimes in great stuff, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, sometimes in paycheck stuff, Suburban Commando, and sometimes in, oh God, he said yes to that, My Favorite Martian. But here's the thing, he always committed. Whether voicing Rasputin in a forgotten animated film or popping up in a random Hallmark Christmas movie, Lloyd never phoned it in. The man shows up, behind the scenes, no scandal, no drug arrests, no messy divorces splashed across the tabloids. Lloyd is the kind of actor who disappears between roles not because he's hiding, but because he genuinely doesn't care about the spotlight. He married a few times, quietly, lived modestly, we're talking Vermont, not Beverly Hills, and occasionally showed up at fan conventions like a cryptid in a Hawaiian shirt. In the 2000s and 2010s, Lloyd became what every eccentric actor hopes to become, a meme. Doc Brown gifs were everywhere. People started quoting him in political arguments and wedding vows. He reprised the role in ads, animated shorts, and even a LEGO Dimensions video game. Somehow, the man aged into his character. He was always 65 in spirit anyway. More recently, he's been popping up in odd, interesting places. A grizzled Russian father-in-law in Nobody, a guest appearance in The Mandalorian, and occasional indie films where directors cast him because, well, why the hell not? Here's the takeaway. Christopher Lloyd never burned out because he never bought in. He didn't try to be a heartthrob or a brand. He was never the guy with a perfume line or a weird crypto coin. He was just an actor, a character actor, a really good one. The kind you don't notice until he's not there. He's not a tragic cautionary tale or an unkillable icon. He's something rarer, a working weirdo who made it out alive and still looks like he might time travel at any moment. Before Tom Holland started flipping around like a caffeinated gymnast and Andrew Garfield made Gen Z cry, there was Tobey Maguire, the original sad-eyed Spider-Man. The one who looked like he just read the script and realized he had to kiss Kirsten Dunst upside down in the pouring rain. Born in 1975 in Santa Monica, Tobey didn't grow up swinging between penthouses. His parents split early, money was tight, and he bounced between relatives like a B-list sitcom character. But here's the twist. His mom nudged him toward acting, which beat the hell out of working fast food. Early roles included commercials and TV spots, where he perfected the art of looking perpetually overwhelmed. By the mid-90s, Tobey was part of Leonardo DiCaprio's now mythical Pussy Posse. Yes, that's what they were called. And no, it doesn't age well. He wasn't as pretty as Leo, but he had this underdog thing going. Slightly awkward, intense eyes, and a vibe like he'd just been told he's not allowed back at the casino. He picked up solid roles in The Ice Storm, Pleasantville, and Wonder Boys, proving he could act without spandex. And then, Then came the web. Spider-Man 2002 was a cinematic moon landing. Sam Raimi directed it like a comic book fever dream, and Tobey brought just enough anxiety and weird sincerity to make Peter Parker believable. He wasn't suave, he wasn't shredded, he was just some dude who got bit by a spider and immediately ruined his life trying to do the right thing. The film was a monster hit. Spider-Man 2 is still considered one of the best superhero films ever, thanks to Alfred Molina's mechanical tentacles and Tobey's now iconic "I'm not okay" face. Spider-Man 3, on the other hand, was a meme before memes existed. Emo hair, jazz dancing, finger guns. It wasn't Tobey's fault, but you could see the franchise going through puberty and getting it all wrong. Behind the scenes, things weren't all Spidey smooth. There were reports Tobey wanted more money for the sequels, standard A-list behavior, but it rubbed people the wrong way. There were also some spine issues, literally, and talks about replacing him with Jake Gyllenhaal in Spider-Man 2. Still, he powered through. Post-Spider-Man, Tobey didn't exactly soar. He took on a few dramatic roles. Brothers was solid, but nothing stuck like the spandex. Instead, he got into producing. He backed the 25th Hour and Seabiscuit and developed a reputation as a brutal poker player. And by brutal, we mean allegedly tipping cocktail waitresses with chips and making them bark like seals. Yes, that story comes from Molly's Game, and yes, it was definitely based on Tobey. In the 2010s, Tobey pulled back. Fewer roles, fewer appearances, more poker, more producing. Hollywood loves a comeback, but Maguire didn't seem desperate for one. He kept a low profile, maybe too low. For a while, his biggest headline was a divorce in 2016. Then Spider-Man No Way Home happened. Tobey walked back on set like a mythological creature returning from exile, and audiences lost their collective minds. He didn't try to be the young, buff hero again. He leaned into the older, tired version, the one who's been through some shit and probably has a chiropractor on speed dial. So where does that leave Tobey Maguire? Not a washed-up star, not a comeback king. Just a guy who burned bright, dipped out, and resurfaced at the exact right moment to remind everyone why they loved him in the first place. He's not chasing blockbusters. He's playing poker, producing films, and showing up when it matters. In short, Tobey Maguire is Hollywood's least likely icon. Awkward, unexpected, and quietly unforgettable. Before he was diagnosing patients with savant-level monologues and emotionally constipated stares in The Good Doctor, Freddie Highmore was just that polite British kid who got a golden ticket to a chocolate factory run by a ghostly Michael Jackson impersonator in a purple coat. And somehow, he walked out of that acid trip with his career intact. Which, considering the number of child actors swallowed whole by early fame, is basically a magic trick. And fittingly, Highmore closes out our little journey through the Hall of Fame, or maybe purgatory, of actors who were launched, typecast, or just plain branded forever by one role. It's only right we end on someone who broke the curse. Freddie Highmore was born in 1992 in Camden Town, London, basically the artsy thrift store mecca of England. His mother was a talent agent, his father was an actor, and little Freddie had that perfect storm of looks like a porcelain doll and talks like he went to Oxford at age 6. He didn't, but he might as well have.
It's something I thought I wanted to do, and I had an opportunity, and I did it.
His breakout wasn't Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was Finding Neverland, 2004, where he held his own against Johnny Depp without once breaking into jazz hands. It's also what got Depp to personally recommend him to Tim Burton. That's right, Depp, in full whimsical sad boy mode, handed Burton a future Willy Wonka candidate like he was passing on the holy grail of child actors. And then came Charlie and the Chocolate Factory 2005, a film where the real plot twist wasn't the Oompa Loompas or that weird puppet-burning trauma montage. It was that Highmore managed to seem normal in the middle of it. While Depp went full fever dream, Freddie played Charlie as the most grounded, well-mannered, poverty-stricken kid this side of Victorian literature. He didn't overact. He didn't wink at the camera. He just existed. Now, for many child stars, this is the part of the story where things go off the rails. Rehab, tabloids, where are they now? Listicles, but not Freddie. Instead of riding the sugar high, he disappeared into books and school uniforms. He went to Cambridge. He studied Spanish and Arabic. That's not a metaphor. He literally speaks both fluently. While his peers were crashing sports cars or playing poker with DiCaprio, Freddie was buried in textbooks. Absolute madman. His career in his teens was low-key but steady. Voice roles in Arthur and the Invisibles, more British dramas, and a couple of smaller films kept the wheels turning. Nothing screamed leading man, but there was a strange consistency to it. No public meltdowns, no weird direct-to-DVD cash grabs, just Freddie, quietly aging like a fine tea. Then came Bates Motel, the psycho prequel nobody asked for but somehow worked. Highmore played young Norman Bates with a creepy precision that made you forget he was once the face of family-friendly wonder. Suddenly, the same kid who once hugged Willy Wonka was now stuffing taxidermy and slowly unraveling into serial killer territory, and he crushed it. Critics loved him. Audiences were disturbed. Mission accomplished. But it wasn't just acting. He also started writing and producing. By the time The Good Doctor launched in 2017, Highmore wasn't just the lead. He was one of the executive producers. That's right. While most actors his age were still figuring out how to not fumble interviews, Freddie was calling the shots. The show itself, polarizing. Critics were split, but it became a massive ratings hit. And Highmore's portrayal of Dr. Sean Murphy became meme-worthy and Emmy-discussed in equal measure. In interviews, he's soft-spoken, polite to a fault, and almost unsettlingly normal. No scandals, no messy divorces, no angry exes on Twitter. Just Freddie, sipping tea and using words like rather and indeed. It's almost suspicious, like, is he okay? To his credit, he's kept his private life very private. There's a wife. Yes, he confirmed that in the most British way possible on Jimmy Kimmel Live, basically muttering it between compliments about Los Angeles traffic. But beyond that, a mystery. No red carpet PDA, no tabloid fodder, just an actor who somehow skipped the entire child star implosion arc. Freddie Highmore stands out not because he burned out, but because he didn't. No spectacular fall from grace, no desperate comeback tour. Just a calm, weirdly controlled transition from wide-eyed golden ticket holder to producer-writer-actor triple threat. He's the anti-cliché. The kid who walked through the chocolate factory didn't drown in the chocolate river and somehow ended up running the whole damn show. Hollywood loves a comeback. But let's be real, not everyone gets one. Some actors get launched into orbit by one big role, and then just kind of stay there, floating, forever known as that guy from that movie. It's tragic, it's hilarious, it's showbiz, baby. But hey, they burned bright. They gave us something unforgettable, and maybe that's enough. Or maybe it's just a reminder not to peak at 13. Either way, if you liked the ride, hit that like, smash the sub, drop a comment, because unlike these poor bastards, you can come back anytime.